the news.
This one will be kind of long. Again, to be totally transparent, this is from Ian MacLeod.
Alan
MacLeod. Shout out to
MacLeod.
Indy for letting him know that we're going to cover his article today. So Alan, if you are watching, we'd love to have you on the show.
Yeah, dude.
Talk about your journalism and
I promise not to make Highlander jokes. I promise. Promise not to do it. Cross his fingers under desk.
But I felt like this might be a story that we should get ahead of, given what's happening to Ghislaine Maxwell right now. And this is kind of like a receipt, just to kind of say we've kind of talked about this. But I think the angle that Alan kind of took, he's not focusing just on Ghislaine and Jeffrey Epstein. He's kind of focusing on the family itself and like people that you may not necessarily heard of who and their surveillance ties, especially in our government, have kind of, I think it would make a lot of sense as to why Trump is spooked in terms of the information that probably is in the files that could be extremely damning to him, but also like, that's why I called it Keeping Up with the Maxwells, because we get to know about more people in the family that you may not necessarily know in the news or being talked about otherwise. So again, shout out to Alan MacLeod for covering this. So like I said, I'm gonna read most of it, not all of it, because it is kind of long. So as we always do, any articles that we read from, you can find in the description below, whether you're in the stream if you're watching live or in the clip in the segment once we clip it out. But Alan writes for MintPress, where he titles his investigation, "The CIA, Mossad, and Epstein, Unraveling the Intellectual Ties of the Maxwell Family." So, so Alan writes, actually, you know what? I'm going to zoom in on mine because that is a little small even for me, and this print is actually that's a little better. With speculation mounting that Trump could pardon her, MintPress profiles the family of convicted, and I'll probably, I know you guys don't like censoring, but
sex trafficker,
I guess.
I mean, that's what she is.
Ghislaine Maxwell. I'm so concerned about that kind of bullshit, but from a media baron father who acted as a high-level spy for Israel. Guess you guys didn't know that. Her sister working to push Tel Aviv's interest in Silicon Valley. Sure, you guys didn't know that. Her brothers, who founded a dubious but highly influential anti-Islamic extremist think tank, and nephews in influential roles at the State Department and White House, the Maxwell clan have wide-ranging ties to U.S. and Israeli state power. This is their story.
Which, shout out Whitney Webb as well, who talked about this ad nauseum for a long time before it was ever even
who Alan also mentions in this article.
I'm sure, because I've read these exact things from Whitney, so he should. Here.
Actually,
there you go.
Actually, I'll just read it from my my view.
We could do this. Hold on. Let's let me pull up the actual article.
I got it though.
Yeah, it's just for the people at home.
Sure.
Because I can just zoom easy.
Well, I'll read it while you get this.
Yeah,
I'll read it. I'll start reading it while you pull that up. So thank you for that. Speculation is growing that Ghislaine Maxwell could soon be freed. Despite campaigning on the promise to release the Epstein files, there are increasing signs that the Trump administration is considering pardoning the world's most notorious convicted sex trafficker. Last month, Trump, who contemplated the idea in his first term in office, repeatedly refused to rule out pardon, saying to journalists that I'm allowed to do it. Just days later, Maxwell was transferred across states to a minimum security facility in Bryan, Texas, a highly unusual practice. Neither women convicted of sex crimes nor those with more than 10 years remaining on their sentence are generally permitted to be transferred to such facilities. The move sparked equal measures of speculation and outrage. The decision to relocate Maxwell came after somebody, potentially a source within her team itself, began linking incriminating and embarrassing evidence linking Trump to Epstein. This included a birthday card Trump sent Epstein featuring a hand-drawn nude woman, accompanied by the text, "Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret." Oh God, how disgusting!
I know, dude.
For years, Maxwell aided her partner Jeffrey Epstein in trafficking and borrowing girls and young women, creating a giant sex crime ring in the process. Epstein's associates included billionaires, scientists, celebrities, and politicians, including President Trump, whom he considered his closest friend, quote unquote. In 2021, 2 years after Epstein's mysterious death in a Manhattan prison, Maxwell was found guilty of child sex trafficking offenses and was subsequently sentenced to 20 years in the prison. Oh, you're okay. The news that Trump may soon free such an infamous criminal sent shockwaves through his base and drew charges of blatant corruption from the media. Is there any reason to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell except to buy her silence? Ran the headline of one article in The Hill. Meanwhile, Tim Hogan, senior Democratic National Committee advisor, denounced what he claimed was a government cover-up in real time. Donald Trump's FBI, run by loyalist Kash Patel, redacted Trump's name from the Epstein files, which have still not been released, he said. So let's get into, so actually now we're going to get into some of the family members. So we'll get into Robert Maxwell first.
The father, who was Mossad.
While many of Ghislaine Maxwell's crimes have come to light, less well known are her family's myriad connections to both the US and Israeli national security states. Chief among these are those of her father, disgraced media baron and early tech entrepreneur, Robert Maxwell. A Jewish refugee fleeing Hitler's occupation of his native Czechoslovakia, Maxwell fought for Britain against Germany. After World War II, he used his Czech connections to help funnel arms to the nascent state of Israel, weapons that helped them win the 1948 war and carry out the Nakba, the ethnic cleansing of nearly 800,000 Palestinians. Maxwell's biographers Gordon Thomas and Martin Dillon wrote that he was first recruited by Israeli intelligence in the 1960s and began buying up Israeli tech corporations. Israel used these companies and their software to carry out spying and other clandestine operations across the globe. Maxwell amassed a vast business empire of 350 companies employing 16,000 people. He owned an array of newspapers, including the New York Daily News, Britain's Daily Mirror, and Reef of Israel, in addition to some of the world's most influential book and scientific publishing houses. With business power came political power. He was elected to the UK Parliament in 1964 and counted US Secretary of State Henry Kissinger and Soviet Premier Mikhail Gorbachev among his closest friends. He used this influence to advance Israeli interests, selling Israeli intelligence gathering software to Russia, the US, the UK, and many other countries. This software included a secret Israeli backdoor that allowed the Israeli intelligence agency, Mossad, to tap into classified information gathered by governments and intelligence agencies around the world.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, it was expanding its espionage capabilities. Israel was developing a secret nuclear weapons program. This project was exposed by Israeli peace activist Mordecai Vanunu, who in 1986 leaked evidence to the British press. Maxwell, one of Britain's most powerful press barons, spied on Vanunu, passing photographs and other information to the Israeli embassy, intelligence that led to Vanunu's international abduction by Mossad and his subsequent imprisonment. His death was also surrounded by controversy similar to Epstein's. In 1991, his lifeless body was found in the ocean in what authorities ruled a bizarre accident whereby the tycoon had fallen from his luxury yacht. Sure. To this day, his children are split on whether they think he was murdered. The rumors that Maxwell had, for decades, been acting as an Israeli super spy, all but were confirmed by the lavish state funeral he received in Jerusalem. His body was interred at the Mount of Olives, one of the holiest sites in Judaism, the spot from which Jesus is said to have ascended into heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, let me go forward. So now, so now we talked about the dad. Let's talk about sister now, Isabel Maxwell. Robert's daughter and Ghislaine's older sister managed to obtain a copy of Thomas and Dylan's biography. She immediately flew to Israel, the Times of London reported, where she showed it to a family friend, quote unquote, and deputy director of Mossad, David Kimche. These actions did little to beat Kimchi. These actions did little to beat the book's central allegation that her father was indeed a high-level Israeli super spy. Isabel had enjoyed a long and successful career in the tech industry. In 1992, along with her twin sister Christine, she founded a company that developed one of the internet's first search engines. After the pension scandal, however, she and her siblings shifted their focus to rebuilding every facet of their father's collapsed business empire. The sisters sold the search engine, netting enormous profits. As Israeli outlet Haaretz noted in 2001, Isabel decided to dedicate her life to advancing the Jewish state's interests, vowing to work only on things involving Israel, as she believes in Israel. Described by former press journalist and investigative reporter Whitney Webb as Israel's backdoor into Silicon Valley, she has transformed herself into a key ambassador for the country in the tech world. So there's a picture of Isabel there.
Right.
Maxwell created a unique niche for herself in tech as a liaison between Israeli companies in the initial development stages and private angel investors in the US. At the same time, she helps US companies interested in opening development centers in Israel, wrote local business newspaper Globes. She lives intensively, including innumerable flights back and forth between Tel Aviv and San Francisco, it added. Israel is known to be the source of much of the world's most controversial spyware and hacking tools used by repressive governments the world over to survey, harass, and even kill political opponents. This includes the notorious Pegasus software, which you've talked about, used by the government of Saudi Arabia to track Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi before assassinating him in Turkey. Israel built on her father's political connections. My father was the most influential in my life. He was a very accomplished man and achieved many of his goals during his life. I learned very much from him and made many of his ways of my own, she said. This includes developing intimate ties to a myriad of Israeli leaders, including Ehud Olmert and Ehud Barak, one of Jeffrey Epstein's closest associates.
Yep.
During 2000, she was a regular participant at the Herzliya Conference, an annual closed-door gathering of the West's most senior political, security, and intelligence officials, in addition to being a technology pioneer at the WEF. She was also placed on the board of the Israeli government-funded Shimon Peres Center for Peace and Innovation and the American Friends of the
Yitzhak
Rabin Center of Israeli Yitzhak Rabin Center of Israeli Studies, two organizations closely associated with those former Israeli prime ministers.
Yep.
In 2001, she became the CEO of Incognito, taking the job, in her words, because the company is in Israel and because of its technology. The technology in question was aimed at keeping children safe online, highly ironic given that her sister was actively trafficking and abusing minors throughout that period.
That's pretty. I mean, how many times have we seen that, though? With people like this, where they put themselves into positions of helping kids. I mean, classically, right, like, you know, and it gives you access to them, right? We've seen that. This is what priests and, you know, rabbis and all these, like, what was the one in Britain? The kids presenter. Someone in chat will probably remind me, but like, where like everyone knew, everyone at the BBC knew, he was working with them all the time. He was like knighted practically, you know. They did a whole documentary on him recently, but very similar thing, right? Where it's, you know, put yourself in a position of helping kids. You know, they get involved with charities and stuff like that to get closer to that. You know, I mean, they're predators. They try to put themselves where the prey is. You know,
right?
So, but
Isabel was a much more serious and accomplished individual than Ghislaine. As Haaretz noted, while younger sister Ghislaine made the gossip columns after breakfasting with Bill Clinton or because of her ties with another close friend, Britain's Prince Andrew, Isabel wants to show photos taken of herself with the Grand Mufti of Egypt, or with Bedouin in a tent, or of visits of a Gaza refugee camp. In 1997, Isabel was appointed president of the Israeli security firm Comtouch. Thanks to her connections, Comtouch was able to secure investment from many of the most prominent players in Silicon Valley, including Bill Gates, a close association of both the Maxwell family and
Epstein.
Jeffrey Epstein himself.
Yeah, Jimmy Savile, who I was thinking of.
All right.
Yeah.
So next, Maxwell, the other sister, Christine. So Isabel's twin sister, Christine, is no less accomplished. A veteran of the publishing and tech industry, she co-founded data analytics firm Chilad. As CEO, she helped oversee the production of massive counterterrorism database that the company sold to the FBI during the height of the War on Terror. The software helped the Bush administration crack down on Muslim Americans and tear down domestic civil liberties in the wake of 9/11 and the Patriot Act. Today, she is the leader and co-founder of another big data corporation, Tectonic Insight.
Yeah.
Like her sister and father, Christine has a close relationship with the State of Israel. She is currently a fellow at the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy, where her biography states, she works to promote innovative academic research that leverages enabling technologies to empower proactive understanding and combating the great dangers of contemporary anti-Semitism and enhancing the ongoing relevance of the Holocaust for the 21st century and beyond. ISAP's board is a who's who of Israeli national security state officials. This includes Natan Sharansky, former Minister of Internal Affairs and Deputy Prime Minister of Israel, and Brigadier General Sima Fanikil, the former Chief Censor of the IDF, and Director General of the Ministry of Strategic Affairs and Diplomacy. Also on the board is
Alan Dershowitz, the old Dershie squirts.
Right. The think tank was a key player in the U.S. government's decision to repress the 2024 Gaza protests on university campuses nationwide. The group produced reports linking student leaders with foreign terrorist organizations and promoted dubious claims about a wave of anti-Semitism washing over American colleges. It met frequently with both Democratic and Republican leaders and urged them to investigate, in other words, repress, the leaders of the demonstrations. This gap has continued warned of foreign influence on American campuses, producing reports and holding seminars detailing Qatar's supposed stranglehold over the U.S. higher education system, and linking that with the growing anti-Israel sentiment among America's youth, which again also relates to the segment we talked about American University. So all of this is all connected. So once again, if you want to watch that segment, you can go to our playlist and watch. I forgot the name of it, but it's basically U.S. Universities collaborate with Israeli
which
ones.
we've talked about Israeli spies in and amongst, school population as well.
College campuses.
Yeah.
As professors, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
So this is
all of the above.
The rabbit hole, right? Yeah, if ISGAP wished to investigate other foreign government influence operations, it would not have to look far, as its own funds overwhelmingly come from a single source, the Israeli state. In 2018, an investigation found that Israel's Ministry of Strategic Affairs, then headed by Brigadier General Vakin Gil herself, channeled $145,000 to ISGAP, a sum representing nearly 8% of its entire revenues for that year. ISGAP failed to disclose that information to either the public or the federal government. At the height of the concern over foreign interference in American politics, the news barely registered. Since then, the Israeli government has continued to bankroll the group to the tune of millions. In 2019, for example, it approved a grant of over $1.3 million to ISGAP. Thus, in her role as a fellow at the organization, Christine Maxwell is the direct beneficiary of Israel government cash. So she sounds like Pelosi in a lot of ways.
It sounds like honestly. So many nepotism babies involved in all this.
Sure.
But
so now we'll get into the next generation of Maxwell's. While Robert Maxwell's daughters were close to state power, some of the family's third generation have taken up positions within the U.S. government itself. Shortly after going to college, Alex Gerasi, Isabel Maxwell's only son, was employed by Hillary Clinton on her 2007-2008 presidential campaign. Gerasi drafted memos, briefings, and policy papers for the Clinton team and helped prepare her for more than 20 debates. The Clinton and Maxwell families are closely intertwined. Ghislaine vacationed with Hillary's daughter, Chelsea, and appeared prominently at her wedding.
Yep.
Both she and Jeffrey Epstein were invited multiple times to the Clinton White House. Long after Epstein was jailed, President Bill Clinton invited Ghislaine to an intimate dinner with him at an exclusive Los Angeles restaurant. Although she failed in her bid for the White House, President Obama named Hillary Clinton as his Secretary of State, and one of her first actions was to appoint Gerasi to her team. He quickly rose in the ranks, becoming Chief of Staff at the Office of the Assistant Secretary of State, Bureau of Near Eastern Affairs. In this role, he specialized in developing the United States policy towards Israel and Iran, although he also worked on the U.S. occupation of Iraq and accompanied Clinton on visits to Israel and the Arab world. While at the State Department, he served as the U.S. government representative to the Friends of Libya and the Friends of the Syrian People's Conferences. These were two organizations of hardline hawkish groups working towards the overthrow of those two governments and a replacement with U.S.-friendly regimes. Washington got what it wanted. In 2011, Libyan leader Colonel Gaddafi was overthrown, killed, and replaced by Islamic warlords. And last December, longtime Syrian President Bashar al-Assad fled to Russia and was replaced by the founder of al-Qaeda in Syria, Abdul Mohammed al-Jilani, who you reported on as well.
Yep. Vanessa still does. Go follow her for all that shit.
Gerasi was later appointed as an associate at the U.S. government-funded think tank, the Carnegie Endowment for Peace. While there, he again specialized in Middle East policy, his bio noting that he worked on matters relating to democratization and civil society in the Arab world, the Arab uprisings, and Israeli-Palestinian peace. Today, he works for Silicon Valley.
Of course he does.
While Gerasi's fortunes were tied to the Clinton faction of the Democratic Party, his cousin Xavier Molina Christine Maxwell's eldest son, backed the right horse, working on the Obama-Biden 2008 presidential run. He was rewarded for his good work with a position in the White House itself, but he became a staff assistant at the executive office of the president. Like his cousin, once his time in office was over, Melina also secured a position at the Carnegie Endowment for Peace before pursuing a career in the tech world, working for many years at Google in the Bay Area. He currently works for Disney.
Oh, of course he does. Funny.
Yeah. While the actions of parents and grandparents should not determine the careers of later generations, the fact that two individuals who come from a multi-generational family of unrepentant spies and operatives of a foreign power securing positions at the center of the U.S. state is at least worthy of note. So, as you said, Nepo.
Yep, all over the place.
Now, all right. So, like I said, a lot of this not a lot, but some of this I cut.
Yep.
But any thoughts so far before we get into, I think, the main course of this article?
I mean, not necessarily. Like, funny that the Disney thing. Of course, he revolving door right into Hollywood, right? Which Disney pretty much owns Hollywood now. That is Hollywood. So, of course they head over there. So, it's just always funny to me, this web that is weaved here, like that, all these connections and whatever that people just seem to ignore because A, who's going to be looking, and B, even if you're told, you're like, like it can be dismissed someone easily, but the evidence is just, there's reams of it now, like you can't really ignore it, which is why it's now what they did was they politicized it, right? Like you heard them talk about Clinton's and that they're in Obama's administration and they're in, of course they were going to be in Biden's administration, and I'm sure they are. Like these, sex trafficking spies are kind of everywhere, but they've now only pinned it on the right wing and Trump, like seemingly forgetting.
Right. But which I find kind of very interesting. It's especially with the files, it's very easy to call out Trump for not releasing them. Biden could have released them.
Right.
He didn't. So it's, if this is bipartisan, like why didn't Biden release the files? Because it would implicate.
Well, now you see, you see them, Ghislaine, talking about, well, this person isn't, like they've completely, I'm sure, tortured her in a cell, to say and do whatever they want her to do, like she's not going to be, like, you can't believe a word she's saying, like we're never going to get real answers on this pretty much, unless you everyone kind of already knows the flight logs have been out forever. We know who's on it. But it's just funny that, we'll arrest these people for sex crimes to no one. None of this traffic, they weren't trafficked to anyone. We can't arrest anyone that they were trafficked to. What?
Right.
Like, okay. But we're going to get to the man himself, right? So,
yep. And I'm sure a lot of you know this anyway, but good. I think just as a good review of Mr. Epstein himself. For years, Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein ran a sex trafficking ring that exploited hundreds of girls and young women. They were also connected to vast networks of the global elite, including billionaire business owners, royalty, star academics, and foreign leaders among their closest acquaintances, leading to intense speculation about the extent of their involvement in their many crimes. It is still unclear when Epstein first met with the Maxwells, with some alleging that he was recruited into Israeli intelligence by Robert Maxwell. Others state the relationship only began after Robert's death, when he saved the family from penury following its financial problem.
Yeah.
Only 1 month after his 2019 arrest, Epstein was found dead in his New York City prison cell. his death was officially ruled a suicide, although his family has rejected this interpretation. Perhaps the two most powerful individuals in Epstein's circle of confidence were Presidents Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. Clinton, already infamous for the numerous accusations of sexual misconduct against him, is known to have flown at least 17 times on Epstein's private jet, nicknamed the Lolita Express. I was accused by Epstein victim Virginia Guffrey of visiting Little St. James Island, a multimillionaire's private Caribbean residence where many of his worst crimes took place. Arguably, was even closer to the disgraced financier. I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy, he said in 2002. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it. Like Clinton, Trump flew on the Lolita Express. Epstein attended his wedding to Marla Maples in 1993 and claimed to have introduced him to his third wife, Melania. Unfortunately, while Epstein's ties incriminate the entire political spectrum, coverage has only been framed as a partisan issue. A MintPress study of over 1 year of Epstein coverage on MSNBC and Fox News found that each network downplayed its connections to their preferred president while emphasizing and highlighting the links to the leader of the other major party. I mean, duh.
Yep.
As a result, many in the United States see the affair as an indictment of their political rivals rather than of the political system as a whole, which...
tale as old as time.
Again, I just said it.
Yep.
Right. Exactly. We should probably clip that part, honestly.
Sure.
Make that a short. See how well that does. Anyway, there's also remains the question of Epstein's link to intelligence, something that has been openly speculated about in the media for decades, even years before any allegations against him were made public. Throughout the 1990s, Epstein's biographer Julie K. Brown noted he openly boasted about working both for the CIA and Mossad, although the veracity of his claims remains in doubt. As Britain's Sunday Times wrote in 2000, he's Mr. Enigmatic. Nobody knows whether he's a concert pianist, property developer, a CIA agent, a math teacher, or a member of Mossad.
I forget who got him that.
Do
you know about that? There's a thing about someone gave him the job at the university to be a math teacher or whatever. Like, I forget the connection, but it's an interesting one. But my brain will not find that file.
If he's connected,
yeah, it was. I think it's something to do with the like P Diddy stuff. You know, like one of those like guys. You know, Cyban or whatever got him that gig. You know, one of the record label people. But anyway,
right. It is possible that there is at least a grain of truth to all of these identities. Epstein met with U.S. Secretary of State William Burns 3 times in 2014. Burns will later be named director of the CIA. Burns' proximity to Epstein, however, pales in comparison to that of former Israeli Prime Minister, Foreign Minister, and Defense Minister Ehud Barak. Between 2013 and 2017 alone, Barak is known to have traveled to New York City and met with the convicted criminal at least 30 times, sometimes arriving at his Manhattan mansion incognito or wearing a mask to hide his identity.
Please let it be the Groucho Marx glasses. Please let that be the... In a trench coat and a hat, dude. Please let it be that. They don't know any better.
Numerous sources have commented on Epstein's connections to Israeli intelligence. A previous girlfriend and victim of his, referred in court documents as Jane Doe 200 to hide her identity, testified that Epstein boasted about being a Mossad operative and that after he R'd her, she could not go to the police because his position as a spy made her fear for her life. Jo generally believed that any reporting of the rape by what she believed to be a Mossad agent with some of the most unique connections in the world will result in significant bodily harm or death to her.
Right.
Reads the court filing. Ari Ben Mensch, a former senior official in Israel's military defense directorate, claimed that Epstein was a spy and that he and Ghislaine Maxwell were running a honey trap operation on behalf of Israel.
Yep.
4 anonymous sources told Rolling Stone that Epstein had directly worked with the Israeli government. Unlike much of the Maxwell family, however, his Israel and intelligence connections are based largely on testimony and unverified accounts. His only known trip to the country was in April 2008, just before his sentencing, a move that sparked fears he would seek refuge there, because we know that happens.
Still does. Still fucking happens a lot.
Nevertheless, there has been intense public speculation that he could have been working for Tel Aviv. At the Turning Points USA Student Action Summit 2025, former Fox News host Tucker Carlson stated
who
that
has his own fucking familial connections to intelligence, by the way. Let us not forget. You know?
Right. He stated that there's nothing wrong, hateful, or anti-Semitic about asking questions about Epstein's foreign connections. No one's allowed to say that the foreign government is Israel because we've been somehow cowed into thinking that that's naughty, he said, before expressing his aspiration about the media's silence on the issue. What the hell is this? You have the former Israeli prime minister living in your house. You have all of this contact with a foreign government. Were you working on behalf of the Mossad? Were you running a blackmail operation on behalf of a foreign government? Carlson's comments drew harsh condemnation from former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. The accusation that Jeffrey Epstein somehow worked for Israel or the Mossad running a blackmail ring is categorically and totally false. Epstein's conduct, both the criminal and the merely despicable, had nothing whatsoever to do with the Mossad or the state of Israel, he wrote. This accusation is a lie being peddled by prominent online personalities such as Tucker Carlson, pretending that they know things they don't, he added, concluding that Israel was under attack from a vicious wave of slander and lies.
Yo, of course, we're so prosecuted.
Whatever the truth about Epstein, it is undisputable that the powerful Maxwell family holds wide-ranging connections to the US, British, and Israeli state power. It's also beyond doubt that if the full story of their activities were ever to reach the public, it would incriminate a significant number of the world's most powerful people and organizations. Perhaps that is why Trump has, in short order, gone from promising to release the Epstein files to potentially releasing his accomplice. So, I mean, I think even if you did not know any of it, you could have put 2 and 2 together, but I think it's interesting. I think it's important to kind of understand the history of this family and how thoroughly connected they are, like generations worth of surveillance connections with our government, with ties to Israel. And so hopefully this will kind of explain why our government officials are essentially bitches when it comes to Israel. And then, like, given their ties to Epstein, why they don't want to, essentially, they don't want to incriminate each other, even though they kind of pretend, you know, oh, it's Trump's fault or whatever else that what they're doing right now. Like, again, Democrats are just as bad, if not worse, and are protecting themselves in this, given, you know, as, you know, like, you know, Hillary Clinton had, you know, Nepo babies who were are Maxwell, you know, progeny working for her. So, you know, so this is bipartisan, but you wouldn't, as Alan said, you wouldn't necessarily know it from the media, given how skewed it is towards Trump. And this issue is where, again, I haven't heard much about Clinton as of late and his ties to Epstein. And I'm sure there are other Democratic politicians who are also lumped in any of that, but have yet to be mentioned if they ever will be at all. So, like I said, I felt it was important given I'm sure Alan did extensive research on this in order to write this investigation piece. But as I said, given what we know about Ghislaine Maxwell right now, it's looking very probable that she will be pardoned. So, just giving you guys the context of all of that before that happens, so you'll have some context to it. Any final words before we close?
No, sounds about right. Pretty much. So, anyway.
And that's why we're demonetized, because we're talking in this open.
Yup.
Openness of a way. So if you want to listen or watch more stories like this where we don't sugarcoat shit, or at least the people that we follow and respect don't sugarcoat the shit, you can scan the QR code that you see on the screen, or you can type in the Ko-fi link that you see on the bottom of your screen, or if you're in the YouTube chat, you could type in !donate on one word if you don't want to bother typing in the link that you see there. Regardless, if you type it in, type in !donate, the link will pop up and you can click right on it and you can give as little as $1 towards helping us and helping Angel with the purchase of his computer. So we thank you in advance for that. If you also want to give to PayPal, Cash App, and Substack, you can go to the description below if you want to give on those channels as well. But obviously, as we say, we do this out of love for you all. You know, we don't need or necessarily desire your money, especially if you're struggling. So, but if you want to support us, a free way is to like and subscribe to our content and please share our content to help us fight this suppression that we're seeing on YouTube. And make sure you leave a comment. Were you aware of how connected the Maxwell family is? Did you even know any of these family members at all? Like, honestly, I never heard of any of them of it, like the the OGs up until this story. So again, shout out to Alan for his reporting on that. And to help us get to free K, hopefully we can hit that by the end of the year. And thanks for watching.